Hello everyone and welcome back to some more Kill Team for the channel, and for the very first time on the channel we are into the dark with the Gallowdark map type. It's an interior of like a Space Hulk or just some old derelict, and we have a new team also taking part today. But first a little bit real quick about how the rules differ for Gallowdark. You have the open hatch ability for 1 AP. Hatches are like this. Most of them are marked with a green thing above, so hopefully from this sort of angle you see here you can roughly tell where doors are. For instance, one there, one there, one there, and you can see the ones along the top. You can open those. You can fight through doorways with a 2-inch range, I think, instead of normal control range, and everybody has access to the guard ability, which is the one ability that Space Marine and the Phobos team has. It's an Overwatch, essentially. Costs 1 AP. If someone finishes an action within your control range or within your line of sight, you can either fight or take a shot before they get to carry on their turn. Anyway, let's go look at the first team, which is the new team on the field, rather. It is the Hunter Clade, and they're going up against the Angels of Death. So by no means is this the optimal setup for the Hunter Clade, but this is certainly the optimal setup if you want to really cheaply put them together, since all you need is the sprue for Skitarii Rangers, which you can get on eBay for about £15, which is what we did here. And the front 5 are kind of like their special people, but there's really only 2 actual unique operatives. That is the Skitarii Ranger Alpha over here with the Relic Pistol, I think it's called, and Power Weapon, and then the Skitarii Ranger Diecat, which is their Vox guy. Then the rest of them are all technically just Skitarii Rangers Warriors, but 3 of them have the 3 unique weapons you are allowed to take one of. So this is a Transuronic Arquebus, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, a Plasma Cavalier right on the end here, and then the Arc Rifle right there. And then 5 at the back are just warriors with their default galvanic rifle. Again, far from optimal, because you have, like, I think the optimal setup is to bring some Sicarian, those spider-legged robot people and that kind of thing, but we're going to try this. This particular sniper is frowned upon because of the huge base he's on, because it's hard to position, etc. But whatever, we'll give it a go. Faction equipment wise, they're bringing a refractor field and redundancy systems. One is a once per turn, you can ignore piercing 1, and 1 is a once per turn if you're not in control range of an enemy. You heal D3 plus 2 wounds during your activation. They're also bringing 2 light barricades and 1 heavy barricade. And here are the Angels of Death front row, left to right. Space Marine Captain, Heavy Intercessor Gunner. We have the Assault Intercessor Grenadier. We have the Intercessor Gunner with the Auxiliary Grenade Launcher. Then at the back we have 2 Intercessor Warriors. Their chapter tactics are going to be Resolute, so they don't need to worry about changes to their APL stat. And Hardy, which is saves of 5+ are critical successes. I think Resolute also counters injured. They are bringing their Purity Seals, Chapter Reliquaries, a Heavy Barricade, and also Light Barricades. However, Hivestorm only came with 2 Light Barricades, so the portable barricades are being used, placed on their side to roughly match the length and height of the Light Barricades. I think that covers everything. Let's go over the table. So for a map like Gallowdark, this may be one of the occasions where an overhead camera would actually be preferable, but that is not going to be the case here. Objective 2 is right in the middle of the map. Objective 3 favours the deployment zone of whoever deploys at the bottom of the map, and top left in that cube up there is Objective 1, and that favours the top half deployment line installed up there, and it's long table lengths for that. It's going to be loot as the crit op, which we've covered before, so I'm not going to repeat that. Kill op is in effect, and hidden tac ops as well, that will be revealed most likely from turn 2 onwards. So with that, we'll get all set up and be back after this quick word from my channel sponsors. This video is sponsored by Noble Knight Games. Check out the video description below for an affiliate link that will take you through to their store, and it will help me out as well. Thanks. And so we are back with deployment. The Angels of Death are deploying at what will most likely be considered the top of the table from the angle we're going to mostly use, and the Hunter Clade at the bottom. But here's a kind of side-on view, gives you a good view of where Objective 1 was. Also shows you where most of the barricades were placed. 1 light barricade for the Hunter Clade there, their heavy barricade is there, and their other light barricade is on the far end of the table at Objective 3 on it. The Space Marines put 1 on Objective 1, their heavy barricade is next to their door that is facing Objective 2, and their light barricade is top left, kind of almost symmetrically with how the Hunter Clade have placed theirs. We'll give you a better look as best we can with the angles at specifically where each unit is, but for the most part they're just lined up by where the doors are. That's kind of dictating where they get deployed. So right at the messy half of the table, you can see where all the Angels of Death are deployed. We have one of the warriors with the gunner down here next to one door. That one door, by the way, did not assemble correctly, and it's going to annoy me forever because it's never going to be fully closed. It just did not go in right, and it's already broken off once and will probably break off again. So when they breach that door, they're really going to breach that door. This scenery in general has just been an absolute nightmare to put together, by the way. Like, it's not even fully connected because when it is, it's too tight in the middle, so the sides raise because of how tight the plastic couplings are. So it's not as great a scenery set as I was hoping, but oh well. Anywho, the heavy gunner is here with the captain. The assault marine with the other gunner, other warrior rather, is up at the top end of the table, and there is a door blocking it, so even though he's kind of in the open, they won't be able to get him this turn. The Hunter Clade are all 2 AP, by the way. And speaking of the Hunter Clade, here is where most of them are. The Diecat 2 warriors and the third warrior with the plasma gun equivalent are up against that door that's right up against their deployment. In the middle we have the leader there next to one of the warriors, and then the gunner that is equipped with the sniper rifle equivalent, the arquebus. And then over here we have the other 2 warriors and then the gunner with the plasma gun equivalent. Chapter approved missions, or whatever they're called, for Kill Team, the new pack that's coming out is getting rid of the scouting step and is replacing it with a initiative bonus. So whoever doesn't get initiative is going to have a bonus they can bank and then use at some point in the future. They're getting rid of the scouting step presumably because you just always take extra equipment if you're playing optimally, so they just want to get rid of that. So we're just not going to play the scouting step this time in preparation for getting used to that pack. It's not out for a couple of weeks on day of recording, but we're just prepping for that. And so the game got started with the Hunter Clade, and they activated the Diecat to start with, who hasn't moved a single inch. For his 2 AP, he spent 1 to open up the hatch in front of them, so that's now swung open. It stays open unless you perform the action to close it. And then he used Signal, it's called. He just picks a friendly Hunter Clade operative visible to and within 6 of him to give them +1 APL. So he is given the one using the plasma gun equivalent. Sorry, yeah. I think during setup I said the plasma gun was on the left. That's the arc rifle. Plasma gun is right here, and now he does have 3 APL for his activation later in the round. First action for the Angels of Death was one of the warriors who performed the open hatch action on the hatch. I was complaining that it's going to fall off its hinges. It didn't yet, but I feel like it's going to at some point. You're just going to see it on the floor eventually. Watch out for it. Then he did a move, or reposition, let's use the correct terms, behind the quote-unquote light barricade that they've had to use on Objective 1 there, and then he went on guard. So again, that's a chance to overwatch at someone who decides to come through the door on the Hunter Clade side if they do, which, if we just pan down a little bit, the door for them is right there. So before we talk about who activated for the Hunter Clade next, they did have one mechanic that we totally forgot to mention during setup. It's their faction rule called Doctrina Imperatives, rather. You just have to select one out of a list to be your main imperative that once per game you can activate for a round without taking into account the negative it applies. So they have picked the Protector Imperative, which gives their weapons ceaseless, but normally would also make their melee weapons worse. So anyway, as a strategic gambit, in each turn they can activate Doctrina Imperative. They usually have a positive and a negative. As I just explained, once per game they can activate the one they've chosen that doesn't have a negative for 1 turn only. It's as a strategic gambit, so we don't have to activate one as far as we can tell, but they have ones that can give their melee weapons ceaseless. They can make themselves tankier, so the normal damage of 3 or more would do 1 less. They can give themselves +1 move at the cost of making their save worse for a round, that kind of thing. As I say, they didn't use one here, they don't need to, and at some point they'll activate the one that will give their weapons ceaseless, and if they do, it will have no negative, since they picked that as their main one. So anyway, the warrior down here activated, he performed the open hatch action. That one's also very tight, so it's not fully opening, but what can you do? And then he just did a reposition behind the heavy barricade that is in the next room. The Space Marine Captain activated, he performed the open hatch action on the hatch right in front of him. He repositioned behind the heavy barricade there. He took an engage order, much like the warrior did earlier in the turn, forgot to mention that, and he has gone on guard. Well, it turns out that was a bit of a whoopsie from the Space Marine captain, because yeah, he's on guard, and yeah, if someone moves into his line of sight, he can shoot at them. But that plasma pistol of his, it's only range 8, which takes him to roughly the far side of objective 2. Next turn, that could be really useful. But turn 1, not really. So for the Hunter Clade, the gunner that's armed with the sniper rifle, the Transuronic Arquebus, activated. He did a dash through the door right there. He took an engage order because he has line of sight of the captain and he can shoot the captain. So he did. Now, his sniper has got a dash only profile, which is the one he's using, and then he has a standing still profile that's better. The dash profile though, piercing 1, devastating 2, 4 dice hitting on 3s with a 4-3 damage split. He did not roll well. You can just about see the only 2 successes he's got, and it's weird how these work out, but he rolled 2 4s. The captain retained an automatic success, just happened to set it to 4. That wasn't on purpose or anything. Then rolled another save, losing 1 die for piercing. Rolled a 4 as well. So 4 is the magic number today. I forget which Chaos God 4 is for. Is that Khorne? Is Khorne 4? That doesn't bode well. But either way, the captain has fully saved the damage. He has not used his guard. He will have another opportunity to do it if someone somehow manages to get that far up. The only stipulation where you wouldn't get to do it is if someone got into close combat with you and fought you. At the top right of the table, the other normal intercessor warrior activated, repositioned to where you can see him. He's not up against the door and he's not behind the barricade. He took an engage order and has gone on guard. Over the blue end of the table, one of the Skitarii Ranger warriors activated, repositioned and dashed up to the hatch. Didn't want to open it even if he did have another APL, so just chilling there. The Space Marine Heavy Intercessor Gunner activated. He repositioned to where you can see him next to the captain, partially obscured by the heavy cover there. And for his second APL, he fired that heavy bolter at the sniper for the Hunter Clade with the arquebus, whatever it's called. 5 dice, and hitting on 3s, he got 3 normal hits and a crit. He has piercing crits as well, so that takes away a die. 1 automatically retained save for cover down here for the sniper. I can't really see his dice. So the 4 is the retained save because we're just running with 4 being the number apparently. And the 1 was the roll, and that was a whiff. So he only blocked 1 of those, so 2 normal hits and a crit are getting through. So that is 5 for the crit and another 8 for the 2 normal hits, which is a lot more wounds than a Skitarii Ranger has. Their leader's got 8, the rest of them, yeah, literally all the rest of them have 7. So we're not going to have to worry about that awkwardly sized base for the sniper anymore, because he just got murdered. Now, they're a 10-man kill team, so you need two kills to get on the kill up, so nothing scored there, but that threatening sniper gone. He still has 1 APL left, and he's going on guard with it. The Ranger Gunner armed with the Plasma Gun equivalent, who got boosted APL earlier in the round from the die-cat, activated. He repositioned, he dashed, and then used that extra APL to perform the open hatch action right on that hatch that you can see now swung open. It swings into that long central area where the Space Marines are kind of holding ground. Well, there's another door right next to that one, so the Assault Intercessor Grenadier activated, repositioned, and has opened the hatch. He kept his conceal order, by the way, but he has now opened that hatch that also goes into the main room from a slightly different angle. Back in the bottom right corner, another of the Skitarii Ranger warriors activated and has moved up to the light barricade they placed on objective 3, and kept a conceal order as well. Last activation of turning point 1 for the Space Marines, barring any counteractions, was the Intercessor Gunner, who repositioned, dashed, and has opened the door there. That also opens up to the main chamber. There's one more to the right there on the Hunter Clade side. He kept his conceal order as well. The Ranger Alpha activated and walked through the door there, so it is behind the heavy barricade alongside one of the warriors, and he kept his conceal. He's behind the heavy barricade, so when he finished that reposition, he's not a valid target for taking a shot at him from the heavy gunner, so nothing there, and I don't think a counteraction is being triggered either. The Ranger Warrior armed with the arc rifle, repositioned, dashed up to the door, no APL left to open it though, and just to save trying to find a filming angle for it, there is a counteraction happening. It is the warrior at the very top of the screen. He's doing a reposition, so he'll be an inch or 2 closer to the door in front of him. Second last activation for the Hunter Clade was the warrior down by the die-cat, repositioned, dashed onto objective 3 behind the light barricade next to the one that just moved there earlier. And their final activation was a repositioned dash for the final warrior, who's gone up to this door with the other one early in the turn, and doesn't have any APL to open it, so just chilling there. And that takes us to the end of turning point 1. So at the end of turning point 1, no scores there, but 1 casualty for the Hunter Clade, so they're down to 9, but not enough for the Angels of Death to actually get on the scoreboard with the kill up. They'll need to kill 1 more. So we can go straight into turning point 2 now, with objectives being active for the crit up, which again is loot. So you loot them, etc., and you can't loot something that's being looted in the same turn. And also we might see tac ops be revealed at either the top of the round or as we go through the round. So with that, let's jump straight in. At the top of turning point 2, the Hunter Clade have nothing to declare. Also, they absolutely could have used the refractor field for the shot that killed the sniper, i.e. he could have ignored the piercing, so he would have had 1 more die roll. Even if it was a crit, if it negated the crit, enough damage from the normals would have gone through to kill him, and if he blocked the normal, the other normal plus the crit would still have killed him, so it wouldn't have made a difference. But yeah, did spot that he certainly could have negated that piercing. Anywho, the Angels of Death, they are going first in this round. They have spent... Oh, actually, you know what? The Hunter Clade did have something to declare. They're using their Doctra Imperative, their main one, so their ranged weapons are going to have Ceaseless this round, with no negative. The Angels of Death are declaring their attack up, which is Champion, and their Champion is the heavy gunner with the heavy bolt gun. We've seen this plenty of times before, but you can pause if you want to read it. So they are doing that. They are also spending on Combat Doctrine, specifically the Tactical Doctrine, so they'll have balanced if they're shooting at someone within 6 inches of them. And I think that's it. I believe that was everything declared. So with that, let's jump into turning point 2. Well, the Angels of Death woke up and chose violence, I guess, because the first activation for them in turning point 2 was the warrior that moved closer to the door with a counteract. First AP spent on opening, second one on a reposition, and third shooting the gunner with the plasma gun equivalent in the back. He does have a conceal, but he's in the open from that angle. He's basically throwing his life away to do this, so he must want rid of that plasma real bad. And it's 4 dice on a Stalker Bolt Rifle moving profile, so no extra benefits or anything. And balanced, which did turn into another hit, and those 4s are natural 4s, so 4 is still just the magic number, and even the Skitarii Rangers all have 4+ saves, so it's just 4s across the board. Anyway, he got 2 hits and a crit, and the Skitarii Ranger whiffed everything. Not a single save, no piercing to negate anyway, so he is blown through the back of the head by a bolter round, and is killed, and that does give the Space Marines the first tier of their kill up, so they're on the board for 1 VP with that. Hope it was worth it, because that Space Marine is going to die. The impending death of that Space Marine might take a little longer than expected. That one of the 2 warriors there activated, took an engage order. He can only shoot once in his turn, so he spent his other APL to loot. So objective 3 is now looted, that's what that 1 is going to denote for them, and that means they are on the board for 1 VP from the crit op. Then he shot his Galvanic Rifle, that's the standard weapon for 5 of those warriors. It's heavy reposition only, so you can only fire it without dashing. It's got piercing crits, and it's 4 dice hitting on 3s with a 3-4 split, so basically the same as a bolter. All the warriors have a rule called Targeting Protocol. Whenever they're shooting, if it hasn't moved during its activation, they have lethal 5+. But sadly, he was just rolling 4s, and again, I swear to you, these are all natural 4s. So the lethal 5+ from not moving did not kick in. He did get 2 successes, but the Space Marine saved them with a crit and a normal, so no damage. The Assault Intercessor Grenadier decided to join in on the fun over here as a result of that failure there, because he now had a valid target, thanks to the warrior taking an engage order. So he repositioned, dashed into smack dab danger zone there, and in the control range of the objective now, but that doesn't matter, and threw a frag grenade at the warrior who had an engage. 2-inch blast, so also caught the one who hadn't activated, and you can see their relative rolls there. I think all of them are on the screen. So against his actual target, he got a crit and a hit. The hit was saved, so 4 damage from the crit goes through, leaving him on 3. He rolled really well against the one who's just having to hang around that hasn't activated yet. He got 3 hits and a crit, and he did manage to get 2 saves. So whether or not he uses those to negate the crit or 2 of the normals, it still equals a total of 6 damage. So it doesn't matter which way you cut it, and piercing isn't relevant here. So no matter what he does with his saves, he's still got 1 wound left. So he's injured, but he does get the chance to potentially do something. Leaving that mess over the far right of the table, we're on the far left of the table because this Warrior Ranger activated. He spent 1 APL to open the door that he and the other one are in front of. Then he placed down a beacon, because plant beacons is their attack up. We've seen this before, you can pause and read if you wish. So that is wholly within the Hunter Clade's territory, so that is 1 VP scored on the attack up. We turn to the centre of the table next, as the Intercessor Gunner activated, kept his conceal, repositioned, looted, dashed back out the door, just touching the control radius enough to do the loot for 1 VP from the crit up. Hiding back here in the dark, the Skitarii Ranger Diecat activated. He gave 1 APL to the warrior in that messy room that hasn't activated yet, and then he just stayed where he was and shot his galvanic rifle, and he did really well. 2 natural crits, and because he didn't move, that 5 is also a crit, thanks to targeting protocols, which they all have, by the way, it's not just the warriors. So that also means that piercing crits kicks in. 2 defense dice on the warrior there. He managed to get 2 saves. Because of Resolute, is it? Whichever chapter tactic that lets him count 5s as crits. No matter which way you cut it, he's only negating 1 of those crits. So 2 get through for 8, leaving him on 6. So nasty hit there into him. By the way, just realised the dice, the wrong colour of dice were used for each side there. It's because the white dice are down here in Space Marine corner, which happens to be where the die-cat is. But for visual clarity, we need to stick to the right colours, so apologies for that. The white dice are the ones being used for the Space Marines, as they have been up to this point. It's just they happen to be right in front of the die-cat, so no, they were reached for. And conversely, the Angels of Death turns are really simple. That warrior activated, he looted, so that's him scored the maximum of 2 from the crit up this round, and then he went on guard. By the way, when it rolls over to a new turning point, that's one of the criteria for guard no longer applying. So say he did do guard in turn 1, and someone immediately moved into his line of sight in turn 2, he wouldn't have guard for that purposes. We're back to the murder room. The warrior there, the only one left over that general area that hasn't activated, and did so, and made use of their once per turn redundancy systems. He is not quite in the control range of any Space Marine, so that's a D3 plus 2 wounds healed. He healed a total of 4 back up to 5, which means he's not wounded, or sorry, not injured. So he was back to full hit stats, and he rolled really well. He didn't move, so he rolled 3 normal hits with those 4s, again 4s, and that 5 is a crit, and has piercing, because it's piercing crits. Into the injured Space Marine Intercessor Warrior, who managed to roll 2 crits, because the 5 is counting as a crit, because of their chapter tactic, but that still only negates 2 of the normal hits, and the other 2 get through for a total of 6 damage, which is precisely enough that the Space Marine has fallen. So there you go. That Space Marine is dead. That puts the Hunter Clade on the board for the kill up with 1 VP. Oh, apologies, he had 1 more action because the die-cat gave him 1 extra APL. So, well, technically he still had 2 because he only shot, so he still had something else. He repositioned so that they're not grenade bait next round. The Space Marine Captain is being very brazen. He moved up from behind that heavy cover. Oh, what you just realised, he's knocked, hasn't he? 6 inches, and then has gone on guard smack dab in the middle of the table, just begging for someone to present themselves as a target. Well, a bit of a I'm not sure what I expected situation followed. The Ranger Gunner, equipped with the arc rifle activated, took an engage, performed the operate hatch action, which put him in line of sight of the captain. Knew that was going to happen. Did not expect it to hurt as much as it did. So the captain triggered his guard, so he's allowed to interrupt and do something. He opted to shoot, obviously, with his plasma pistol, and just casually managed to get 2 crits and 2 hits with it, which is pretty scary. It also has piercing 1 built in. Opted to use the once per turn ignore piercing, or reduce piercing 1 to 0 in this case. So no piercing, and managed to get a crit and a normal save, which negates half of that damage, but the half that still gets through does 8 damage, which is 1 more than it needed to do. So he got melted before he was even able to fire that arc rifle. The arc rifle, for the record, would have been 4 dice, also hitting on 3s, piercing built in, stun built in, with a 4-5 damage profile. So it would have stood an okay chance at doing pretty well against the captain. Did not expect him to roll so hot, pardon the sort of pun, because it was a plasma pistol, against him, but he's been vaporized. With 3 dead, is that another on the kill board? No, it needs to be 4, so 1 more still needs to die. So with that activation having been interrupted and abruptly stopped, it was over to the Angels of Death, not Angels of the Death, well that sounds kind of cool, for the final activation of Turning Point 2 barring counter actions, which they'll still have one of. Yeah, just one counteraction. Oh wait, no, maybe two. Because I think, yeah, both those haven't activated plus one of the other warriors. As long as someone else still has to activate, they get a counteract. So they're getting at least one, maybe two. But anyway, he moved up just behind the captain a little bit and has gone on guard. So here's a little side-on view of the central room, since it's important for what happened next. The Ranger warrior down here next to the Ranger Alpha took an engage order and fired at the heavy gunner. He originally only had one success, but with Ceaseless re-rolling 2 misses of 2, they both re-rolled into crits, which is actually really, really good. And then there's still the 3+, which is a success. So piercing kicked in as well, because he had lethal 5+ piercing on crits. And of the 2 saves, that counts as a crit because of Resolute, or whatever it's called, plus a normal save. 1 crit still gets through, though, from the Galvanic Rifle for 5 or whatever it is. But he's a Gravis armor guy, so he's a chunky lad. He's got 14 wounds left. Actually, didn't it do 5? Shouldn't it have done 5? No, it does 4 on a crit. Yeah, oof, rough. So yeah, he's got 14 left of his 18. Now, more importantly, he can now trigger that guard action because he's had an action done in his line of sight. He got shot at, so he's going to shoot right back. Well, you know, this is how it works out sometimes. I'm starting to get the impression elite teams do very well on Gallowdark and shooty horde armies don't. So, yeah, the heavy bolter shot back, got 2 hits and a crit with 2 misses. 1 save retained automatically for being in cover, and whiffed the other 2. Actually, it would only have been 1, right? Because he has piercing crits. Yep, so too many dice got rolled. Still doesn't matter, because way too much damage got through, and that is him splattered off the table, eviscerated by a hail of heavy bolter fire, which does a couple of things. Puts him up another tier of kill up to tier 2 for 2 VP, and also gives them the champion kill, the max they can get against how many wounds the Hunter Clade have, so it's just 1 on the tack up that they'll be getting per turn at most, but still more points. And with that interrupted the action. It was more or less over anyway because he wasn't going to move. The Space Marines do get to do a counteract despite that guard action, I think. Actually, we better double check because I think it takes the place of a counteraction, or maybe it stops that one model counteracting. A quick glance at the rules, couldn't see anything about not being allowed to activate via a counteraction with a model who's done a guard, but I'm pretty sure I've seen that somewhere, so we're not going to let him activate as a counteraction. Not that he has anything to do as a counteraction anyway, but just in case, that's how we're going to play it, that he couldn't. Also double checked, but as part of a guard action, you are allowed to do a shoot even if someone has charged you and they're at point blank range, but you take a negative to your hit stat. So it's counteraction time, and it looks like it's going to be the Assault Intercessor Grenadier. Not 100% sure a charge is allowed to be a counteraction. Like, you're never allowed to move at more than 2 inches during a counteraction, but a 2-inch move could get him into either combat. So presumably that is allowed, and he's going to spend 1 CP on Wrath of Vengeance, so he can do 2 things, aka charge plus fight. As far as we're aware, that seems fine. If it's not, don't worry about it. So there was no need to roll dice for the Hunter Clade Ranger Warrior, because as long as there was 1 success, it gets resolved first in the fight action, and then he's dead because he has 3 wounds left, and the chainsword is a 4-5 split. So speaking of split, he was split in half. That is half of the Hunter Clade dead. They're very fragile. Now, they're definitely wanting to engage at range, which Gallowdark does not particularly lend themselves to. So he is out of there. Not enough to go up another kill grade, but still another body off the board. And they still have 1 more activation. No, they have 2 more activations actually, so there's still going to be another counter action. So because I didn't want to walk into another Overwatch from a guard action, the warrior who was on the door over here to the left activated, repositioned, and then shot his galvanic rifle through the door at the Space Marine captain. Did really well with the roll, actually. Got 3 successes and a crit success. Piercing crits kicks in, but lethal 5+ doesn't, because he moved. And the Space Marine captain only rolled 1 normal success, which negates that. He's also opting to use his once per battle Iron Halo, which negates another normal to do nothing. But a crit and a hit still got through, which is pretty good. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, leaving him on 8, I believe, because I think he's 15. So a reasonably good hit. And now the Space Marines get to do another counteraction. And for that counteraction, the Intercessor Gunner repositioned, well, dashed. It doesn't matter, he can only move 2 inches. He moved 2 inches out the door and is now in the central room with the Captain and the Heavy Gunner. So last activation of Turning Point 2 in what has been a massacre for the Hunter Clade. The Ranger Alpha activated, took an engage order, stayed behind the heavy cover, and shot his Master Crafted Radium Pistol, which is what he has combined with a power weapon, into the Captain. 4 dice hitting on 3s with a split of 2/4 with balance and rending. So balance is just reroll 1 die. Rending is if you get a crit, you can change a normal into a crit. So that 5 is actually a crit. So you got 3 crits and a hit. The Space Marine Captain managed to save precisely 1 of those crits. So 2 crits and a hit still got through. And that is 8, 9, 10. That is 10 wounds. So the Captain actually fell. Is that another kill grade? 2 out of a 6-man team? It is! 1 last VP gained in what has been a massacre for them this round. Let's go to the points. So at the end of Turning Point 2, with half the Hunter Clade, rather, not Battle Clade, Hunter Clade dead, and 2 of the Space Marines, so a third of them, dead. The points are actually telling a bit of a different story. The Rangers have scored 2 on the kill op, 1 on the attack op, 1 on the crit op, for a total of 4. The Space Marines, they've got 2 on the kill op as well. They have 1 on the attack op as well, but they have 2 on the crit op. Actually, no, yes, because you get 1 for each time you do the Luke match. Yes, that's right. So it's 5 playing 4 in the Angels of Death favour as we go into the top of Turning Point 3. So at the top of Turning Point 3, the Angels of Death won the roll and are going first again. They are once again selecting a champion, and it is once again the Heavy Intercessor Gunner. The Hunter Clade are spending 1 CP on Scouting Protocol. Any Ranger with a Conceal Order gets to do a free dash before the turn starts. The only thing it was used for was moving the Warrior here right up into the doorway to get a clear shot, or to present a potential danger to take heat off the leader who's got an Engage Order. Nothing much else to do with it. They're on the back foot on the table, but they're still hanging in there points wise. So with that, let's go to the Space Marines' first activation. And the Angels of Death activated the Assault Intercessor Grenadier, who did a charge action into the Ranger in the corner there. Then they fought, and because he had 1 success that was a crit, didn't need to roll dice again, because that's 5 straight through, which is how many he has. So he is outie. Is that another kill grade? That is 6 dead out of 10. Yeah, better believe it is. That's the Space Marines up to kill grade 3. He is still in control range of that objective, so for his 3rd APL he is looting, which also gives them 1 on the crit op. Before we cover the next activation, forgot to mention that a Doctrina, however you pronounce it, imperative was used, called Bulwark Imperative. Normal damage of 3 or more does 1 less, crits still do full damage, and the negative applies, so -1 off the movement for all the... So as it turns out, the Heavy Gunner was actually within range of the Ranger Alpha's pistol. His range 8, and then that big base, and despite his small base, didn't matter. He was in range, so he shot at him, and managed to not get any crits. So the rending doesn't do anything, which sucks. But that's okay, he did get 4 normal hits through, 1 of which was saved. So 3 normal hits, damage, and that is 6 of his 14 gone. So he's got 8 left. Well, we're sticking right here because the Heavy Intercessor Gunner decided to shoot back against the Ranger Alpha. Didn't roll well. 3 successful hits, no crits. 1 successful save, so along with the misses, 1 normal hit goes away. Those 2 normal ones would normally do 8, which would kill him. But because of that Doctrina Imperative, in effect, both are doing 1 less damage because they're normal hits, not crits. So he takes a total of 6 and not 8, and is alive. Unfortunately though, rather than do anything with the objective or anything, the Heavy Gunner is just opting to spend his last 2 AP to fire again. Oof, ouch, my bones. Yeah, that'll do it. So 2 crits. Oh, actually that would have been piercing. It doesn't matter. He is very dead. That's a lot of damage. He is dead. That is 7 out of 10 dead. Needs to get to 8 to score on the kill op again. But that is 1 for the tac op because that was the champion getting a kill. Since they're clearly not winning the gunfight, it's a last minute scramble just for any points at all. The warrior down here activated, repositioned and planted a beacon. It is outside of 6 of the previous one and scores 1 VP for being in the Angels of Death table half. Retribution came awfully quick as this warrior activated. His first set of shots is those dice there, 1 crit, 2 normal hits. Saved one of the normals plus the crit, and the normal that gets through does 1 less damage, or both of them, sorry. He was still alive. Second roll, because he fired twice, he has lethal 5 plus because his stalker bolt rifle gets all the bonuses when he stands still, so that's actually 4 crits. Didn't bother rolling saves. He is out of there, and he has 1 APL left, which he used to loot. So they've gone up another kill grade, I think, plus another point on the crit up, so that's them scored the maximum off of it this round. Oof, we're on the cusp of a tabling here. This Ranger Warrior activated, took an engage. He placed down a beacon in the Hunter Clade's table half, scoring the other victory point as possible to score from plant beacons, so that's them scored the maximum of 2. Then he shot his galvanic rifle into the warrior, precisely 1 success in the attack, which was successfully saved. Wah wah. The Intercessor Gunner did a charge action and then did a doorway fight through there into that Ranger. Actually did pretty poorly. He's only using his fists and he got 2 hits through. The Ranger actually rolled 2 crits, but he's just using the butt of that galvanic rifle. So a normal punch goes through for 3, reduced down to 2 damage. He takes 3 back from the gun butt, that's how much it does on a crit. Then he does another 3, reduced down to 2, for a total of 4, which is half his health. Or just over, depending on how well, because they have 7, so it's hard to half. But he has 3 left. And then he sent through the other crit for another 3 damage. So he actually did better than the Space Marine in hand-to-hand combat, but the Space Marine's got a larger pool of health to kind of whittle through, so he's not really feeling it. So the way this has worked out, this is actually the last activation of Turning Point 3 already. It was the Die-Cat down here who took an engage and then just shot into the back of the Assault Intercessor Grenadier in the next room. Because he was standing still, he had lethal 5 plus, so he got a crit and a hit. The hit was saved, the crit got through for 4 wounds, leaving the Assault Intercessor Grenadier on 10. And yeah, that's everyone activated, so we're on to the points. So then at Turning Point 3, what was a pretty close thing points-wise, not what was happening on the board, but points-wise, has now kind of changed. The Space Marines are running away with it. So Angels of Death, that round they scored 2 for the crit up because they looted 2 objectives. They scored 1 from their attack up for the champion getting a kill. They went up to kill grade level 4. So with all their previous points, that's them up to 10 in total. The Hunter Clade that round, they scored their 2 maximum from the attack up. And I think they were already at kill grade level 2, right? No, they killed the captain, which got them to level 2. So that took them to 6. So 10 plays 6 in the Angels of Death favour as we go into the final turn that's probably going to be real quick. So at the top of Turning Point 4, the final round, the Doctrine Imperative has to be changed and you can't pick one that's been picked prior, so the Hunter Clade are just picking the one that does nothing with no negative because none of the other ones make any difference. And the Angels of Death are picking a champion, but this time the champion is the Gunner there with the auxiliary grenade launcher because he's going to try and punch that Hunter Clade warrior to death. Speaking of which, it's the Hunter Clade going first, so they might get the chance to do something before getting tabled. So this Qatari Ranger Die-Cat activated and opted, rather than just try and shoot once into the back of the Assault Intercessor Grenadier, reposition onto the objective, loot it for 1 on the crit up. Just out of my curiosity, I wanted to see, like, you know, if the roll had happened, would you have spiked and killed the Grenadier? The Die-Cat would not have. He would have got 3 hits through, 1 of which would be saved, 2 of them would go through for 6 and leave him on 4. So he'd still be alive. So no. At least that way he's gained a point. And so the Assault Intercessor Grenadier was first up for the Angels of Death, did a charge, did a fight, managed to get 3 crits and 2 hits with that chainsword of his against 2 hits. So he'll resolve a crit for 5, leaving him on 3 wounds. He gets to throw in a hit and then he gets splatted. So he's out of there. Ow. 9 out of 10 models dead. So just to get this to its terminus, a disengage is 2 AP, so it'd use up his whole turn. So the last sole survivor couldn't even disengage and then shoot, because shooting would obviously be more preferable. So he just fought. He got 2 hits through, actually. Is it on 3s? No, it's on 4s. With his gun butt, so he got 2 hits through versus only 2 successes on the other end as well. But he sends that gun butt in for 2 damage, takes from his fist 3, and that kills him. And tables. So we're just going to end it with a tabling, but obviously the Space Marines would normally be allowed to carry on. They could loot another point, etc. But there's no need. With his death at the hand of the Grenadier, that does score them champion, puts them up to the maximum kill grade of 5, scores champion on their tack op for 1, and as I say, they could absolutely just loot 2, loot 1, so they'll score the maximum on the crit up for this round as well, but a tabling is a tabling. So just for the sake of completeness, prior to revealing primary ops, Hunter Clade killed to a man, had 7, and the Angels of Death had 14, so double. An easy win for them there on the first showing of Gallo Dark, and the Space Marines had tack op as their primary. They should have picked crit op, would have given them maximum payout. Such as it is though, I can't remember if you round down or round up, not that it matters. So they either scored 1 extra point or 2, and the primary op was also the tack op for the Hunter Clade. They did slightly better with that, sort of. Actually no they didn't, they had 3 as well in total, so either 1 or 2 extra, so they stayed the same whichever way they shift in terms of how far apart both sides were. So some final thoughts after using the Hunter Clade for the first time. If you're only going to bring Rangers, yeah, you want a big open map. They'd probably do very well in Beta Decima, because they just want to kind of find positions to sit in and shoot those lethal 5+ piercing crit 1 galvanic rifles. Just spam them from cover. Cover was not doing great for them in this match though. Like, the dice were slightly against them. Let's put that down to new model syndrome. Because they were in cover, they were retaining saves, it's just the saves they were having to roll on their 4+s weren't working out very well. And it does feel like Space Marine, well, any elite team with 3 APL really, they'll probably excel in this kind of close quarters focused map type. It's certainly, it's a different way to play, it feels interesting. Absolute murder, horrible to set up and clip in, and it doesn't clip together right. I hope the Tomb World clips together nicer. It actually needs to be a little looser, because as I say, if you do it as tight as possible with these clips on top of the sections, it gets so tight, the plastic in the middle, at least with this layout, and this is layout number 1, the ends on both sides and the top were lifting off the ground. It was that tight. So they're not great, but hey, hopefully it still looked nice with how it was, presented, barring a few bits where it had to be loosened so it was actually flush with the ground. Either way, hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. This series is available first to channel members. I forgot to say that at the top of the video. So hello channel members, hope you enjoy it. Everyone else, you will see this just over a week afterwards, and that's one of the perks the channel members get for being willing and able to support the content we produce here. It really helps out and helps keep the content coming quickly. If you want to pick up something for yourself, you can check out the channel sponsor via the affiliate link. Anything you pick up through that link, I get compensated, so that's a way for us both to get something out of it. Or if you can only help in free ways, liking, subscribing, sharing, that all helps, or commenting on different series, that would also help as well. So thank you for watching either way, and we'll see you in about a week for another one. Until then, ta-ta for now.